Welcome, everyone, to another edition of Legal Tech Week, the show where we talk about what happened this week in legal tech and innovation. It is February 20th, 2026, and I already see the room filling up with Fireflies note takers, so that's a good thing. I'm always good to have a good attendance at this program. I am Bob Ambrogi. I have a blog called Law Sites and a podcast called Law Next. And our panelists today, starting Niki, you want to kick it off introducing yourself?
Sure. My name is Niki Black. I'm the principal legal insight strategist at 8 a.m., the team behind LawPay, My Case, CaseSphere, and DocketWise. And I was just informed before we started that I have a challenging title. I didn't think it was that bad, but I write legal tech columns for ABA Journal, Above the Law, and the Daily Record. And I also write our legal industry report, which is coming out very soon. So I'm very excited about that. And it is not snowing here, but I know some people weren't able to make it because of snow in unusual places.
Mhm.
Yeah. And Stephanie?
I didn't say you had a challenging title. I just said it was a lot more complicated than nurse. So, I'm Stephanie Wilkins, the director of content at Legal Tech Hub, and it's good to see everyone.
Good to see you. Reese.
Sure. Hey, I'm Reese Dipshan. I'm the editor-in-chief of Legal Tech News.
All right. And Steve.
Hey, Steve Embry. I publish the blog Tech Law Crossroads, and I also write for Above the Law.
All right. And I didn't have snow because I'm in San Francisco, but weirdly, I had to drive my wife to the airport this morning and was getting like weather warnings on Google Maps about sub-zero, sub-freezing temperatures here in the San Francisco Bay Area. So they kind of freak out when it hits 32, I guess, in San Francisco. It's been cold here. It's been weirdly crappy weather, but I guess maybe that's the way it goes. Anyway, where should we start today? There were a couple of, I thought it was interesting that we had a couple of different stories about, I think, judges getting a little impatient with some of the outfall from AI. So one of those stories, Niki, one of those stories was yours, AI related anyway. Do you want to kick us off with that one?
Yeah, I chose a story that was not one that I had written because it caught my eye. The story that I wrote, the article that I wrote was that I didn't submit was I summarized Thomson Reuters' new report, which was very interesting, but it was just a lot of data, and I feel like we've talked about that lately, AI data and what that looks like. So I thought that I would instead submit this because I thought it was really interesting. It's a Fast Company article about the Meta litigation where when Zuckerberg was getting questioned, the judge got really mad because apparently Mark walked in with a bunch of his cronies with him, and they all had the Meta glasses on, and apparently some were wearing them in court, and the judge got very upset and chastised them and warned them to not wear them in court, both because it was recording the proceedings, but I guess the other concern was that what she said was that she was concerned about facial recognition technology being applied to the jurors' faces. And then in the article, they talked about how the glasses don't actually have facial recognition tech. So what she must have been thinking about was the idea that you can upload, the recordings and use additional software and apply facial recognition tech to it. And I was wondering if maybe they were giving her too much credit there, because I don't know a lot of judges that have that kind of tech savvy. But hey, you never know. But even if, but at some point, not too far down the road, we're going to get to the point where the glasses like that are going to have facial recognition tech built in, right? And so I just thought it was a super interesting issue that judges need to be aware of, even when it's not, Zuckerberg walking in surrounded by his entourage of people wearing the Meta glasses, partly as I think an advertising maneuver or publicity stunt. But that's just going to be increasingly more common in courts, in courtroom proceedings moving forward. So I just thought it was a notable thing to highlight, and it raises a bunch of different issues that I also think are interesting. So that was the story I submitted.
I thought it was interesting. I guess what struck me about it was, so in one of my jobs, I represent the news media, and in most courts, there are rules about bringing cameras into courtrooms. And state courts and federal courts have different rules around that, and different states have different rules around that. But the point is simply that there are rules, and this is effectively bringing a camera into a courtroom. I guess, I mean, I suppose you could argue the same thing about bringing an iPhone in, except it's very conspicuous if you're holding your iPhone up and filming somebody, whereas with the glasses, it's not very conspicuous. And I guess it struck me as just surprising that the lawyers for Meta didn't think to either clear this with the court in advance or advise their clients that maybe you want to take those things off before you sit down here in the courtroom. So it just struck me as a little bit. I don't think the article really mentioned anybody sort of pointing the finger at the lawyers, but just struck me as a little bit negligent on their parts that they even got themselves into this situation.
It honestly just seems like a stupid publicity stunt, like almost that they knew they were going to get called out. It also does raise a concern about these types of, I guess, like AR glasses. I'm not even sure how to describe them. They are still fairly new tech, and it doesn't really seem that they're taking off at all. If we ever come to a time when they become cheaper and way more common, are people just going to have to have their sunglasses and eyeglasses scanned in courts, or do you have to take them off in courts? Like it's a host of privacy concerns right there.
It's a real interesting question. There was a cruise line that recently banned the use of those glasses in a lot of areas, including casinos. And the casino is really kind of an interesting question because, the glasses, and I have a pair. I mean, if you could look at them, you wouldn't necessarily conclude right off the bat that they were smart glasses. Plus, you'd have an argument that, hey, I can't see very well. I mean, you're depriving me of the ability to see the cards because you're taking my glasses away. So there's a whole lot of interesting kind of questions I think are going to flow out of those. And then you also have what the new pen that Apple is supposed to be developing, and it's like a necklace that does all the same things. And so yeah, it's a lot of interesting questions.
And eventually, maybe people will be wearing contacts instead of glasses. And how do you deal with it at that point? And what about neural implants? Like, where are we going with all this?
It's all a simulation
How are the
anyway.
court's going to adapt?
But again, I guess the courts will have to adapt. I mean, again, I know in Massachusetts because that's where I work, but I was actually way back when part of a committee that came up with what the current rule is, and it was at that point tackling what was sort of emerging technology. They kind of started to come up with the rule right when people started bringing smartphones and that sort of thing into the courtrooms, and their concern was one, jurors, as you mentioned in this case, but the other one was witnesses in criminal cases that there was this fear that people would come in and film witnesses, in not inadvertently, what I'm saying, try to sort of secretly film witnesses as they were testifying, and then provide that film testimony to others who might want to retaliate against those witnesses or threaten those witnesses or that sort of thing. So it's just the rules need to keep up with the technology, but still the lawyers need to be cognizant of whatever the current rules are and abide by them. But we've had plenty of stories of lawyers not caring what the rules are, I guess.
Or following them either.
Or following.
The juror point is interesting too, like going forward. I mean, because at least like when you go into deliberations, they definitely don't let you have devices and whatever. And if you have these glasses and could access stuff, that's interesting from that perspective too.
Yeah. I don't even have a pair. Can they be disabled easily enough, or is it?
Well, the camera feature, there's a little light that comes on if you take a
Okay.
picture or to do a video. But if you were in a brightly lit place, I'm not sure how easily that would be
Yeah.
to be seen.
Yeah.
Of course, you could put a little piece of tape over it, probably the light that is.
All right.
So yeah, and they're also developing sort of glasses that aid in hearing as well, which raises another dimension to it because people that are hearing impaired, you say, I need the glasses. I can't hear the witness if I can't wear my glasses with the. I don't know.
Yeah. Well,
I
not me, but some people I know who are of a certain age are getting flooded with marketing for those hearing glasses.
Yeah.
I
Uh,
do
yeah.
feel like we'll have a situation sometime, in the future where to like go into a court, you'll have to be scanned with those like new TSA scanners where you got to put your like hands up or something, and they got to do like some crazy scan to see like what tech and implants you probably have. That's basically the only way to
Yeah.
secure somebody's privacy.
Yeah. TSA has gotten, I mean, I don't know about you, but in Boston, it's like I don't even have to take out my ID or my phone or anything. They just scan my
Right.
face and I walk through.
It's
Kind of
Yeah,
scary.
true a lot of
They just
places. Yeah.
scan your face. I've never had that happen.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I've
My
had
eye,
that
They
my
happen
just
one time.
eyes,
Yeah.
scan
my
my
eyes.
face. Sorry?
Biometric eye thing. Yeah.
Oh no, there's facial recognition in most of the New York airports too. You're in theory allowed to say you don't want to do it, but
Yeah.
yeah.
But you have to provide your ID and then they do it. That's everywhere I've gone. That's how it's been.
Well, it depends. Most of them, yes, but Delta has a few things where it literally just is. It scans your face and you just walk through. And like I've had my ID in my hand and they're like, you don't need that.
Yeah, this is Delta. And actually, plus I have
Yeah.
Clear too, so it may be part of the Clear
Yeah.
feature now, but you
Clear.
don't even
Yeah.
have to do
I
anything.
actually
So
have that too in Dallas as well. Like I flew in from overseas in December, and I had to go through uh, the immigration and customs too. And for people with U.S. passports, that they just had a scan our face, and I just went on through. Didn't have to interact. Didn't have to show any ID. They
yeah,
just like had a like t tablet, and they scanned my face, and they're like, "Okay, welcome home." And I'm like, "All right, that's easy enough," but also a tad concerning as well.
Well, yeah,
yeah,
that's how the global entry kiosks are at JFK. You walk in and you walk up and it just senses that you're there and this picture is like, go ahead. Like you hardly even looking at the camera by the time it's like you're through. Like you don't even answer the questions or anything anymore. And you walk up and they're like, hello, Stephanie.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, fortunately, we can trust the government with our private information. So we don't have to worry about
I mean, I'm pretty much sure everyone has all my information at this point. Like that ship
that.
sailed before I knew to be
We
safe
all know
about
your
it.
social
So
security number at this
we'll
point,
know.
Stephanie.
Hopefully not. Yeah. But my face for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. All right. So a somewhat related case, I thought, Reese, was one you brought up the Fifth Circuit ruling that you guys covered this week. I think it was just early a couple of days ago. This week, and also some involved judges getting a little fed up with AI issues. Right? You want to talk about that?
Yeah, sure. What struck me was that the Fifth Circuit was essentially like, okay, like this is going to happen forever, and there's no like clear end in sight. They were really angry too about the fact that the attorney tried to downplay the mistake as well. And I believe the sanction or the fine was about 2,500, which seems pretty low. It's an interesting article because it stresses that attorneys just should be very forthcoming. And if this is going to keep happening all the time, which there's a chance it will, perhaps they should increase the fines and sanctions, and then we have a new stream of funding for all the courts. I don't know. It's just a suggestion out there.
Mhm.
Yeah, well, something that was interesting about that case, and I think you said that, is that it's kind of encouraging lawyers to be a little more forthcoming about that, because I think they suggested that the sanctions would have been uh, perhaps lower or less severe had the lawyer been more forthcoming about the fact that they'd used AI. Apparently, the lawyer was kind of like trying to fudge a little bit what had happened there, and that's part of what got the Fifth Circuit um, upset there.
And
I feel like
also, oh, I'm sorry. It did say that the attorney did use GenAI tools from Helix, which I assume is probably Vincent, and also co-counsel as well. They don't ever go into detail about which tool the hallucination came from. And it, can be interesting to kind of, like see like which tool is causing the most hallucinations or like issues. The problem is like all these disclosures and court filings don't really go into that detail.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say it's pretty similar to what Mark just put in the chat, but like between the first case about the glasses and this, I feel like there's this running theme of like maybe don't try to pull one over on the court.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe let's try to be a little bit upfront about what we're doing before we do these things, and maybe you'll get in less trouble.
Don't be ludicrous.
I know.
also think that this is not the first time this has happened where they've used multiple tools that are legal specific. And I think that when people, because there's this, oh, you've got to double check, you've got to cross check, you've got to make sure, and then people start engaging in this game of AI telephone. And they enter things into one, and then they enter it into the next one, and then they put it into the next one, and like, well, it's got to be right now because it went through three of them. No, like it just hallucinated. You've like the exponentially, like and so they're trying to solve the problem by using more of them, and the lines blur a little bit too between these tools and the AI. You can't just do legal research anymore without the AI being involved somehow. I'm not saying that's bad, but it's sometimes I think because the line is blurred in terms of whether you're using the AI or a legal research product, maybe people don't really understand that AI is, sort of shaping the outcome in some of these cases, and that they do need to double check it by going into the traditional legal research tool that is sometimes, like I said, the interfaces blend them a lot in a way that can be a little bit confusing.
It's interesting. Joshua in the comments says that in the case, the judge actually doubted the claim that the fined lawyer used the tools they claimed. I haven't read the order, so I don't know, but that's interesting. Meaning what? They just used ChatGPT or what? Who knows? I don't know.
I was actually hoping to return to something that Stephen had said, I believe in October at Relativity Fest or in November, and it still sticks with me today. Like pre-NAI tools, attorneys, wouldn't have to check anything. They would just trust their associates. So it's kind of like you're just, increasing the workload, and folks aren't, I guess, really accustomed to having to check stuff over and over again. In the past, they would just be like, yeah, it's totally fine. Like we had associates or whomever, like, check it or like, draft it and it's probably okay, just file stuff. These days, it seems like, okay, like we actually have to, be on top of everything.
Right. So you see the issue, particularly when you look at judges and their law clerks. Is a law clerk does a piece of research for a judge, this judge is now going to have to check every site. We're coming to that point. It almost is a point of diminishing returns.
There's a middle ground, right? Where like, yes, we say like to some degree, people were just relying on associates. And I'm like, well, they shouldn't have always been doing that either. So yeah, like I understand that depending on, if you have a very senior associate that you're trusting and, that's to me, that could be more of a buck stops with them than just like, if you are always blindly, if you're like, I never had to check stuff before and now I do, I don't really have a lot of sympathy for that because it was always on you.
I wonder if there's going
to
be... Go ahead.
I guess that the problem is the penalty for a hallucinated site is so great that, you just imagine a scenario, you might have a senior associate that is really harried, got a crisis at home, has to go out, and he uses or she uses the bot one time, and it's a hallucinated case, and out it goes, and boom, and it's a big, big problem. So I don't know how to contend with it. I know there are some vendors out there that are providing site checkers that do these kind of checks automatically, or so they claim. So maybe that's an answer, but it is a wrinkle in the workflow process and a lot of legal work.
Yeah. Well, and I think one of the wrinkles too, sorry, Nikki, I think you were going to talk, but
That's
Hayden said it in the chat, was that we've sort of moved on. Like some people are still citing fake cases, sure, but we've sort of evolved in our hallucination nation here where we,
Mhm.
it is a real case. It's just cited for the wrong proposition because the AI
Right.
got the holding wrong or something like that. So that's even, I mean, purely fake citations should be easier because there's nothing to link to. But yeah, sorry, I cut you off, Nikki.
Oh, I was gonna say that the firm I worked in was pretty good about this. Once you became you'd been an associate for a while, they would also put your name on the submissions. But a lot of firms don't do that. Like these associates work away in the background, they never get credit for anything, and they end up doing all this work and never getting to the point where they start to let them be co-counsel, if you will, on the briefs, or at least get some credit or argue some. They just sort of have them working away in the background all the time. So maybe this is going to have the unintended consequence of them actually getting some credit. And maybe that might be part of the solution, is that if they're like, well, the partner's like, well, I don't want to review the whole thing and make sure it's accurate. So let's just put all the burden on them. And A, that'll make the person who's actually wrote it responsible, but B, maybe that'll make them be a little more careful, assuming they're the problem versus the partners drafting it themselves are the problem. But I
Yeah.
wonder if
I was gonna say, yeah, I used to be like such a big deal if I finally got my name on a brief, and now I'd be like, no, that's okay. You don't have to
That's
put my
okay.
name there.
That's all right.
Yeah.
Never mind.
I mean, to that point, and to Reese's earlier point about partners maybe having previously been able to trust associates more or something. We've talked about this a million times on the show, but I'm still old school enough that if I am filing a brief or a motion or something in court that cites cases, I am going to have opened each of those cases and read the case. I just can't
Yeah, but
envision not doing that.
it it maybe that's true, but I can tell you from my background that wasn't true. The briefs are too long, the time frames are too short. You may be local counsel, national counsel does the work. I mean, there's just so many scenarios. Yeah, if it's a critical case, I'm going to read it. But let's say it's a string site of standards for summary judgments. I mean, who cares, right? I mean, it is what it is. But one of those cases is wrong. It's a hallucinated case, and the other side finds it out.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a lot of practical issues floating around out there in the workflow process,
Yeah.
Really
particularly
curious
where
too,
you've
like,
got such
oh,
huge time pressures, and I don't. It's hard. It's going to be really hard.
Yep.
I'm actually curious to the extent to which people actually have checked case citations pre-NAI. There was actually someone in the chat that was like, well, like we're able to check case citations because you just run stuff through GenAI tools or something, or like through a Westlaw or like Access, I guess. So like, like, is the issue that we are able to check case citations and people are actually able to do that pretty quickly, as opposed to in the past when people would just, scroll through them and just be like, yeah, that's probably fine. Like those cases probably exist.
I think that's definitely part of it because
Yeah.
you would absolutely pull the cases that stood for some substantive element of the law or that had factual, recitations that compare, are analogous to the case at hand. But when you have those string sites like Steve's talking about, and this is what the general rule of law is, and it doesn't really matter if those cases are the right ones because that is the principle of law and you know it because you've done the research on your end. You're not checking those, but you are checking the ones that are very fact specific or that stand for something that's the exact opposite of what you want it to say. You want to dive in and see if are they making it up? Did they misstate the law? So I think you've definitely have both of those things happening. People are cross-checking all those stupid multiple sites in a row that don't really matter, and there's something incorrect in there. And the AI makes it a lot easier to check all those sites. So yeah, I think you have a combination of things happening there.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Like, if it's the major, if it's the major cases you're relying on to support your argument, for sure you should be checking them. But I feel like I can tell this story because the statute of limitations have passed. But it was like, because no, I was like, seriously, like I did so much research, and I was the person that read every single case and did whatever. And I distinctly remember I was like a second or third year associate at the end of a month-long arbitration where I had lived out of the Hyatt Regency in Chicago, which you all know why I love that hotel so much, right? And it was like the last day of a month-long arbitration. There was a massive brief, all these sites. And I realized in one string site for like our third alternative argument, in one of the string sites, I had cited a dissent. I didn't realize it. And I was like sweating bullets for like 4 hours in the back of the arbitration, being like, can we just close? Can we just close? Can we just close? I don't want this one thing. It was so irrelevant, but it was like the one mistake. I viscerally remember it now because I did check all the sites. So I do understand how, little mistakes like that happen, but nobody caught it because it was, the fourth case cited for a very minor point.
Yeah. And are you sure the statute of limitations is passed on that, or did you ask ChatGPT?
Well,
It
but
confirmed
that it does kind of raise an interesting point because I mean, whoever the partner in charge of that case was, that's why you were there to do that, right? To that site checking. But now we're sort of saying, well, does that partner now have to go site check all those cases himself or herself? Can I not rely on Stephanie anymore? And if that's the case, then I might as well just do all the work myself and forget the associate, right? Because I still got to do the same amount of work.
But in fairness, like I said, that was such a minor alternative argument with so many other cases cited for it that they did read the actual cases that anyone ever discussed in the case. So I don't know.
Yeah. Well, maybe law firms shouldn't be fully relying on AI for their case citations, but what about for their law firm recruiting interviews?
Yeah, yeah. These are two. Actually, they're two articles, but one of them talks about both situations. But I thought it was really interesting. And one of them, a law firm is actually putting recruits through simulations, um, where they interact with a simulated colleague or other stakeholders, and they respond to text messages and voicemails, and they have workloads that they have to manage in this simulation, and it's all designed to, and then they're given a project that they have to complete in a very short order of time, and it's designed to see, can they react under pressure, and do they use good judgment, and make priorities correctly. And so I thought that really was kind of an interesting way, and it reminded me, there's that training vendor, AltaClaro, and they do something similar, although it's not to recruit, it's to help train lawyers, but they create these simulations. And
Stay
so I
tuned.
thought
We
that
got more
was,
from them later in the show.
yeah. Oh, that's right. They and I think that they're doing a really nice job with what they're doing. And then the other another firm was using an AI bot to do its initial interviewing, initial screening of people that's, I guess, submitted resumes or recruiting. And that struck me as kind of, well, there could be a lot of potential bias in there that could lose out. But then there was a quote from somebody that went through it, which I thought was really interesting. And the quote said, actually, this was pretty good because, the bot asked me some really good questions that enabled me to bring out some of the things that I'd done and some of the highlights of my law school career. And it was much more talkative and communicative, frankly, than talking to a partner in a law firm who can care less and is just having to check off the box that he did the interview. And so, it's maybe it's not all bad, but it could be the future of where we're headed to. If you want to get a job at a law firm, you better be ready to go through a simulation and talk to a bot. But to Niki's always good point, it's all a simulation anyway, so what the hell?
I do find those simulations more interesting than I just feel like everything I keep reading about the job application process now is like people are using AI to write a resume, and then people reading the resume are using AI to read the resume. And it's just like just physical AI reading AI, and then maybe a person
Right.
gets an interview. And I don't love that, but I find actually at least the simulation, depending on how it's built, obviously, and what goes into it, I find that a little bit more interesting because you're at least letting people express some personality or knowledge or something that's not just on paper.
Yeah, and the other thing I thought about is with this initial interview, and I'm not exactly sure how they set it up, but it seems like it would be very easy for the applicant to use an AI tool to suggest the answers that the AI bot was questioning about it. So it'd be like AI talking to AI. So you're a really good candidate. I don't know.
Yeah.
Thanks to my bot, and thanks to your bot for asking all the right questions.
Well, but I
Well,
think part of
yeah,
the,
go ahead.
I think it highlights how stupid these things are in the first place. This whole process is kind of stupid. And people aren't supposed to go with their gut, but they go with their gut. It doesn't really matter what you say most of the time in these interview processes. They're going by their gut, whether they like you and think you'll be a good person to work with, right? That's what they're actually assessing, even though they are checking off boxes and doing all the things. So I definitely feel like the whole application and or it's so and so's kid. So of course we're going to hire him, but we got to make him go through the,
Right.
process. And so there's a lot of that going on too. And it just always felt so performative to me. I haven't, fortunately, I didn't have to do a ton of interviews in my life, but they just were always so awkward. And I just felt like I'd run a race by the time I left them. I was like
Oh, I
sweaty and
hated it. Yeah.
stressed
Yeah.
out, and it was
Well,
the
and
worst.
in a lot of firms, the lawyers and legal professionals do the interviewing, and they
They're
really,
not
I
good
mean,
at it.
they aren't trained for that. They really don't, and so they end up talking about themselves most of the time. And
Oh, yeah.
in the interview, he just nods their head. That's interesting.
Those are the
So I
best
don't know.
interviews.
I know.
You just flatter the person interviewing you, and then
Yeah,
they think it was a great interview at the end.
right.
But I remember when I was, in Big Law, they were like somebody was interviewing, they would slot four people onto the interview schedule.
Yeah.
There would be like a partner, two, like a mid-level senior and a junior or whatever. And like you would just get thrown on a random interview. And I was like a first year. I didn't know anything about anything, even including where I was working yet. But I was interviewing somebody to go to work there. And yeah, it was.
Yeah. I wonder if this is a little bit of a case of what's good for the goose is good for the gander, in that law firms are increasingly using AI to perform their intake, their client intake, and they're literally using voice agents and other tools to do the initial interview when a client reaches out. And in some cases, I think probably a few of us probably wrote a few weeks ago about Alpha Lit that launched, which is not just doing the initial intake, but gathering all the documents and then evaluating the case and making a judgment as to whether this is a case worth pursuing. And there are other tools like that too. I think Case Status is doing that now, where they're kind of performing an initial evaluation of the case. So if AI interviewing is good enough for potential clients, why shouldn't it be good enough for potential
Well,
associates?
that raises a really good, interesting point, Bob, because you think about these clients that put matters out for RFPs, and so like say you've got three finalists, are you going to put them through a simulation to see really how good a fit they are for the client, or how good a lawyer they really are? I mean, why wouldn't you if it's a big enough matter?
Yeah, I like that. Let's work on developing that product, and I don't know if anybody's doing that yet.
No,
That's
we
our
can just go.
$1 million idea, you
Yeah.
guys. This is going
We
to
can
be
just go
great.
Yeah.
vibe code it
That's
after
how
this
I was
for
going to
fun.
vibe code it. I
Yeah.
just read about how to do that, so I'm ready to go here.
I think we can get some people to invest. Andrew Arruda will invest. I'm sure he will. Right, Andrew? So
Anything on
there he goes.
simulations,
There
though?
you go.
All right. Well, I'm so glad you talked about simulations in AltaClaro, because Stephanie happens to have a story about simulations in AltaClaro.
I know. I feel so old school that I like actually just picked a product story for my story today.
I know.
Like we just never do that. Um, but yeah, so AltaClaro in partnership with Verbit, the AI, the transcription deposition company, they put out a new simulation e-learning product. AltaClaro has been doing a lot of e-learning over the years, and I've been lucky enough to they let me test a lot of them out, which is great. Um, but so this one, I actually thought it was really cool. It's called DepoSim, and it literally is a deposition simulator where you go in, they give you a case file, of like the relevant, like the complaint answers, like certain case documents. Like this was a short simulation, right? Um, but then and then you can make your own outline, or I use their pre-set outline for your deposition outline, and it gives you a way to practice taking a deposition from start to finish. And you can pick like a hostile witness, which I did, and it was certainly hostile, and or like how aggressive opposing counsel is and objecting and things like that. And you run it, and it like the AI simulates every part other than you. It simulates the witness, the court reporter, the opposing counsel. So it starts with it actually swears it in like it's a real witness, and you can mark exhibits and you can walk through it, and it responds to your questions. It'll be like, give me a second, look at that document. And my hostile witness was a jerk, and you'd be like, but that's not what I meant. And it also reminded me how long it's been since I've taken a deposition because I was definitely floundering and had not prepared that much. And at one point I was like, oh, let me find it. And the fake witness is like, well, maybe you should have prepared more. And I was like, okay, sir. But no, it was really realistic. So I mean, you could do it as many times as you want. And like, so if you needed to train, whether you were new or if you had been doing it for a long time, and like say you had never really handled a hostile witness, and you really wanted to go in and do one, at least get used to what that's like, or like your opposing counsel is a total jerk face, you could put that in too. And it's like it's totally meant for simulation, but it really is. And I mean, you get a comprehensive feedback, like they judge it against what you set out in your outline to achieve, and it'll say like you actually got through these, you made these points, or you missed these, or and you can look at certain segments and rerun them. You can share the transcript if you want feedback with people. Like I thought it was like a really cool, like yes, you could a little bit tell it was robotic, but it felt very real, other than like you were like sitting in your own room without looking at a person. But I thought it was really well done. It was really cool.
I
Yeah,
I
I've seen it too. I thought it was really cool and realistic in a lot
Yeah.
of ways. I mean, it's you do pick your type of witness that you're going to depose, and so it does put certain parameters that are not totally realistic, because sometimes you might have a witness that's very hostile in one area and very talkative. I mean, but
Mhm.
to train people, particularly younger lawyers, or to get
Yeah,
get up to date if you've been around for a while, it's better than anything else that I've heard of. So I
yeah,
thought it was cool too.
absolutely.
they'd given me the opportunity to take a look at it too, but I decided to just wait till legal week and take a look at it. So I'm looking forward to seeing it. But I think what seems so interesting about this is that uh one of the gaps that we're seeing, not just in legal, but is the training aspect, right? It used to be would go in there and kind of train on the job, and but AI's taking a lot of the tasks that you would do. One of which was when I was moved from criminal law into civil litigation, one of the first things they gave me to do in the firm, because I'd never tried a civil case, was to summarize a deposition so that I could see what a deposition looked like, so that I could just understand how the format and who did what, and also so that I could wrap my mind around the case and start helping the lawyer with the case. But it was a great way. But now you can throw a deposition in AI and it'll summarize it in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
So, it's a waste of time to have a young lawyer do that. But you need to kind of do that to understand what a deposition is, where it fits in, what it looks like, and how to conduct one yourself. And then maybe you
Right.
attend one or two as well with a partner. But now it's like, I think it's a way that law schools could start having a trial prep training class that
Mhm.
will make it so that lawyers are more practice, well, students are more practice ready when they graduate, so that the firms have someone. It's part of almost like the apprenticeship within, or the residency within law school, but virtually. And maybe that'll
Yeah.
help fill that gap.
And the way I learned was being a second chair, but back then you really kind of needed a second chair because I had to literally lug piles of paper in and
Right.
put stickers on them and hand them out. So that's not as necessary anymore. But I also like that they're using AI in the training, because I feel like there's so much focus, rightfully so, on training people on how to use AI. But I don't feel like as many people are leaning into the using an AI to deliver the training part. So I really like I thought it was a great idea, and they plan to expand it to other sort of advocacy tasks like negotiations and things like that. But I was really impressed with it.
One thing I really like about these kind of programs is, before a lot of the training in law firms was catch as catch can. I mean, Stephanie, you might have gotten to be second chair on a really big case and with a partner that was really good to work with and kind of mentored and helped you out, and you did well. I, on the other hand, got stuck with the jerk partner who could care less and just
Yeah.
threw a bunch of paper at me and said, "Spit this out." And that penalizes me in my advancement. But the good thing about these kind of programs is it's the availability for every young lawyer in the firm who wants to be a litigator can do this.
Yeah.
And gets equal training, which is what we ought to be about anyway, considering the investments you're making in an associate to start out with.
I did everything wrong when I was a young lawyer. The first time I did a deposition, I had never seen a deposition. I went in by myself. I was a solo lawyer. I wasn't working with a senior partner who was going to train me or anything else. I was scared shitless, and if I had had something like this, I would have eaten it up. It would have been so useful to me to have something like this.
Yeah, and when I was like a mid-level to senior, I don't know, maybe I was like a fifth or sixth year associate, I was sent to like a trial advocacy camp, I guess, for like a
Yeah.
weekend at UVA or whatever, where you spend 2 days and you learn how to do oral argument and stuff like that, which was like great, but like they sent one person a year to do
Mhm.
it. Whereas something like this, everybody can sit down and do it.
Right.
It's actually
Yeah,
interesting
that's the beauty of it.
too, how like the industry is totally okay with these kind of like virtual simulations. I mean, like, pre-COVID, like this would just be like heresy. Like,
Right.
like I feel like people were always so focused on those like, in person, like human skills, associates being trained by partners too. Like during the return to office and COVID, everybody was like, well, like people have to be trained, so you have to come in and like have those skills too. And then everybody's like, oh wait, it's totally okay. We don't have to have like that at all. Like we can just do this with like these virtual simulations. Which also like Gen Z is completely okay with too. Just having like grown up like with like the tendency to interact on the internet and to interact in very, like tech savvy ways too. And it's just, like really interesting to see that change pre-COVID and post-COVID and how quickly it's all changed too. I mean, I was really quite impressed when like Hotshot and like AltaClaro came out and they took off so quickly. I think it was like what, 2021, 2022. And the shift in like law firm training like happened almost overnight. And it was like a giant cultural shift that they kind of were kind of like forced into due to all the changes that COVID brought, including the fact that the partners had no time to train anyway.
That's a really good
Yeah.
point. Because and Reese probably knows this more than anybody, having formerly been my colleague, that I was on a massive soapbox about return to office and this notion that people weren't getting trained because they had some antiquated idea that the partner was coming down the hallway, putting their arm around you and making you a good lawyer. And I'm like, that wasn't happening before COVID. Your only
No, never did.
rationale for return to office is in-person training. It's not happening. So like I never even thought of it that way. This is a shift, and it makes me
Yeah.
love it even more.
Yeah, although
Yeah,
Hotshot was
the whole
actually
notion.
around since 2014 because they were like one of those overnight successes that had actually taken years to get
They
to get to
pivoted
the
their
right
model
point
a
in
bit
time for
too.
them to take off. But yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
They pivoted their model a bit too, but yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, the whole idea that you're going to bump into the partner at the water cooler, like my office didn't even have a friggin' water cooler. And if it did,
Yeah.
nobody had time to go stand around the water cooler waiting for a partner to stroll by. You need to get your
Oh
butt
no.
in the office, close the door, and get to work and bill some time.
If you were at a water cooler or equivalent and you heard a partner coming, you'd like scurry away.
Right.
Yeah.
Particularly on Friday afternoon. Yeah, those were the
So
days.
So I had a couple of stories. I don't know. I had a serious story and a not serious story, but maybe I'm going to start with a serious story only because I'm wondering what you all thought of this story about Harvey this week hiring Harvey, the guy who played Harvey in Suits as their like brand spokesperson. And I don't know if you all saw that story, but it struck me as kind of funny and like a little bit of here's what you do when you got more money than you know what to do with. And I'm just, I, I wonder what like what's the ration? Like, are law firms going to use Harvey because they got some, you know, TV actor who played a lawyer once as their brand spokesman?
I
I don't know.
was,
What did you all
I'm
think of that?
I'm just disappointed they didn't get a rabbit.
Well, yeah, right,
I would like the rabbit.
right. And the other thing, I
Probably a
mean,
lot of people listening have
Andrew can
a lot of
confirm this
people
also, but
listening have no idea what I was just talking about.
right. Well, yeah, I know. But Andrew can confirm this also. But they were the second AI product named after a Suits character because I think Ross was also named after um, one of the characters in Suits. So,
See, I
but
thought
anyway, it just seemed funny.
Ross
Yeah.
was named after Ross from Friends, but that's just me. I don't know. I'll
Yeah.
have to ask Andrew.
Well, Mike Ross is what I understand, the character Mike Ross, but full coincidence. Okay, I don't know. I think Andrew's actually an investor in Harvey too, or was an investor. So we can.
Harvey
Depends how I look about that.
thing
Yeah.
was like Harvey is just like showing off this to an extent, like it's has so much cash and so much sway that it's like we can finally hire the guy that we based the name on too. Like it's a very giant, well-funded company, and they're just having some fun and throwing their sway around too, which isn't surprising, although it could rub people the wrong way. Except I think it's like a silly, funny, you know, marketing ploy.
Yeah,
It's fun.
that's fun. Who was it Smokeball years ago that hired I forget the name of the woman who
Callista
played a lawyer?
Flockhart.
Yeah, Callista Flockhart.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that didn't seem to last very long either. That was a short-lived relationship as far as I could tell.
It seemed
Uh,
like it was just for that one ABA Tech Show video they put out, and that was
yeah, it might have been that. That was a while ago.
Um, there was also Lindsay Lohan, I believe, or like she did some advertisement for some legal tech company. If I recall right, Stephanie, I believe we did the article on that, or
Feel like I would
maybe like
remember
earlier.
that. Feel
Hold
like that
on,
would
I'm
be
gonna
highly memorable. So
search
I
our
don't know.
archives.
Lawyer.com. Yeah, there you go.
Okay,
I just
yeah,
Googled it.
that's the
He did
one.
a lawyer.com ad. Here's a Mashable headline says Lindsay Lohan has a bizarre new gig with lawyer.com.
I think we should get all the celebrities in this field. It's interesting. It keeps it fresh.
Yeah. All right. Then the other story, I should just post it today, but it's not something I wrote. Although I wrote about it, but I was actually writing about. I had only recently sort of come across this uh, Arizona Republic newspaper did this like series of reports about Arizona's alternative big business structure program. And I thought it was pretty interesting because, there had been the Stanford study came out last year saying that, we've looked at the data and there was really kind of no evidence of consumer harm coming out of either the Arizona or Utah programs. And they said that based on looking at sort of disciplinary complaints that had been filed with the Arizona Regulatory Authority, and found there were very very few complaints. But this Arizona story kind of went out and talked to a bunch of consumers and lawyers and others, and found kind of this widespread level of consumer complaints and consumers complaining that they had been, in some ways wronged or scammed by law firms that were operating under the Arizona license, and in part it was kind of the articles kind of focused on the fact that so many law firms have kind of started using their Arizona license as a launching pad or home base for national practices, and in some cases basically national telemarketing practices to kind of bring in clients and then dole them out to law firms in different states. So it's interesting read. I mean, I've summed it up a little bit in my story. I think you need a subscription to the Arizona Republic. Well, I don't think, because I ended up buying one to read the full series of articles. But a much different portrait than we've seen so far, and different than sort of the main talking points we've been getting so far about these alternative business structures. I haven't had a chance to hear back from anybody from the court themselves in Arizona. I did talk to Natalie Knowlton at Stanford, and got some feedback from her on their perspective on it, which again is basically that they just kind of focused on the publicly available data rather than go out and interview individual consumers or whatnot. But I think it's probably going to be something that's going to get a lot of people looking at it who are considering similar reforms in other states. And apparently, according to the Arizona Republic series, the Arizona court itself is already looking at possible reforms to their rule to try and get law firms to focus more on serving Arizona clients as opposed to clients all over the country.
I thought it was interesting, and there were two things that stood out to me. The first was that I always say that capitalism trumps altruism with all these access to justice plays, and that I really just think more funding at a federal level or at a statewide level are really the only ways that you're going to truly help bridge access to justice. And this just sort of confirms I think my thesis or my hypothesis about all of this, that at the end of the day, people just find capitalistic ways to use whatever you roll out to make money, not to help people, obtain access to justice. So that's my first thing. The second thing is I love when there's Real Housewives connections to like legal tech stories, because I'm like, my guilty pleasure used to be more when I traveled, was to watch it's like to only watch Real Housewives when I'm on the road. And Joe Gorga, this is the second time was listed in your article as somebody who is, trying to bank on this and make a lot of money off of this, the Arizona's structure there. But that's the second time someone's popped up, and the other one is the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, and I forget his name, but that lawyer that basically forced California to have like ethics rules and discipline when he really basically had none. I can't remember his name. The guy who had like basically a Ponzi scheme going in his law firm. He's the one that did Brockovich. He was a lawyer that was the lawyer on the Brockovich case. I can't remember his name, but so far we've had two different people tied, husbands of Real Housewives, doing some pretty sketchy stuff that touch on the legal side of things. So this is, I'm keeping track, and I think this is the second one I'm aware of so far. So that was very exciting. Made my day.
The Real Housewives of New Jersey, I think, was probably the craziest of all the franchise, and I'm not surprised that Joe Gorga is up to this. It strikes me as like, akin to what the states are doing with like legalized retail cannabis. They try something, it's totally new, and they don't really know how to properly create the regulations around it. and stuff just takes off, and you have all these crazy unintended consequences too. And there's a ton of like Real Housewives husbands who have also opened retail cannabis stores that are quite shady as well. So like, it could take some time for states like Arizona to understand how to properly construct the guardrails around this. I mean, it is, still fairly new. It's strange that people take concern with the fact that, the firms in Arizona are, reaching clients outside of the state. It's supposed to help the state, although if it brings in like taxable income to the state, and if there's a way to kind of like, to create the regulations around it so it can help the state while still being able to have clients, around the country. Like there's quite a few legal tech companies too that have like firms in Arizona, and they have those firms to serve the entire country too. Like the one that comes to my head is probably the firm by like Rocket Lawyer. They're doing a very targeted approach, and they're serving people around the country through secondments. And, it seems to be a very thought out, helpful approach. And, it's concerning too if like the Supreme Court in the state tends to clamp down too hard. It could like, really harm some of these really, courageous, like, as we can call them, like Eagle Tech folk who are trying really interesting firms in the states and firm structures too.
Yeah. All right. Well, we are at the top of the hour, so we are out of time for today. But as usual, I appreciate all of you on the panel for being here, and all of you in the chat, and everybody else who's watching and listening on YouTube or podcast version. We'll be back next week to talk about whatever happens between now and then. So see you then.
Have a good weekend, everybody. Take care.
Yep.
Good evening.
Bye.
Well.